Hey everyone, and welcome to RPG Horror Stories with DnD Doge. In today's video, we have a story about a player that joins a group that seems to be more like a sex cult. A story about a new player that brings an overpowered furry character, then goes all murderhobo when the DM doesn't allow it, and much more. But first, let's get our wholesome levels up with some kitties before we bring them right back down again. There we go. Now I think we are ready to dive right into these stories. A furry and her boyfriend ruin intro campaign. We quit D&D for 4 years. By Reddit user Celestipede. So for context, this takes place around 2019. Me and some friends were all new to D&D and decided to give it a shot. I'd learn to DM and they would play. There was a warlock, druid, and a cleric. Our cleric had to drop out, so I asked warlock if they had any friends that would be interested in learning D&D. I was still very new to the game, and reading as I went, so the rules were mostly lost on me in the beginning. Warlock got back to me and said her high school friend, quote, played a lot and had a cool character concept. I told her I'd be happy to have them, but again, I was new and didn't know all the races. So I asked her to make a new level 1 basic race character for the Lost Minds book that I had just bought. I know now how important session zeros are, but at the time, I just wanted to play as soon as possible. We were playing in a college library room since we had soundproofing and a big monitor for the game. The new player shows up, I'll just call her Abby, and her boyfriend, who I didn't know was coming. I'll just call him boyfriend. I introduced myself and got the board set up, asking if boyfriend was playing as well. Abby said no, and that he was just going to play a Switch. I was like, okay, a little weird, but whatever. I asked for the character sheet, and she brings in a level 15 homebrew furry fighter sheet. I just looked kind of shocked, and explained that we were all level 1 and basic races since I was new. They were very upset about that. But I gave them a pre-made character I made just in case, and we continued. The second we started off in the city, Abby cuts me off immediately to attack a guard nearby. I get flustered a bit, but roll with it, which leads to an immediate party split and prison after they lose. During this time, boyfriend has been playing his Switch off the screen in the room at max volume. I asked him to nicely please turn it down as they couldn't hear the world building and such, and he says, I don't know how to turn it down, and ignores me. This goes on for several hours back and forth, the loud TV, and Abby insisting on derailing the game because she didn't get to play a furry. After 4 hours, we realize we made no progress in the plot at all, and have just been fixing Abby's situation. So I end the game, and we start packing up. And boyfriend looks flustered, saying that we were too loud while he played Smash Brothers. I confusedly said, alright, well, my players didn't get to have fun because you were too loud. We didn't even know you were coming. Abby said he didn't have anywhere to play a Switch, and that I was being mean. I saw where this was headed, and just finished packing up and left. I told Warlock her friend was no longer welcome, and I quit D&D until maybe a month ago. The rest of us met up and are restarting the Lost Minds story this upcoming week. TLDR? I wanted to DM D&D and got the session ruined by a furry and their loud boyfriend. Edit. After the game, she went on to spam my phone saying how I hated furries and just didn't want her to have fun. I like anthro races. I'm actually playing a tabaxi right now. But the way she described her character could only be described as softcore furry porn. The biggest issue was the murderhoboing, but a massively overleveled homebrew race at a session 1 with no contact beforehand was why I said no to her character. Obviously, I don't hate furries. I just hated this one. Well, it sounds like Abby was nothing but a brat. It's a bit presumptuous to bring a level 15 character and think that the DM is just going to allow that at the start of a campaign. especially when Abby was told that the DM was new and just wanted to use base races to start to make things easier on them. Then, Abby acts like a child and just derails everything? No wonder this turned OP off of playing for a while. Then to bring her boyfriend unannounced and have him loudly play Super Smash Bros. While they tried to play D&D. That is rude as hell, and the excuse that he didn't know how to turn it down is BS. If I was one of the players, I would have gotten up and done it myself. At least OP and the rest of their group is starting up again though. Let's move on. Is this an RPG horror story? Is this me being prude? Did I accidentally join a weird sex cult? By Reddit user Specific Mysterious 44. So, a bit of context. This is my first RPG group. I found it by going to a hobby shop after watching Stranger Things. While I was aware that RPGs were a thing for many years, the show was the impetus for me to try. They hooked me up with that group that already had things going, apparently for years. Their DM is an older woman whom I'd describe as uber goth. We play at her place in what she calls her dungeon, which is her basement, and it's actually pretty dope, if overly goth, gaming space with a few troll items that made me roll my eyes a few times. The rest of her old group are 3 males in their early 20s, like me and the other beginners, another girl and a new guy. She's running D&D without being too much heavy on the rules, and described her table as heavy into roleplay with mature themes and combat light but deadly. She has been extremely insistent on strict scheduling, describing our presence as mandatory, quote, even if hellfire was raining from the sky, which made sense given how large the group was. It was a weekly session. The first couple of sessions felt a bit weird at times, but as I was new, I did put that on me for getting into things, and also the dynamic of half of the group being old mates and having their own habits, inside jokes, and unspoken history and understandings. But a few specific scenes really made me go WTF, even if I never dared to say something as well, and it was one of the new people. Things like describing in very vivid details how an NPC gave head to 2 of the player characters, up to every twist of the tongue, or the group spending most of a session in a brothel for no specific purpose but to get laid again and again. Then things became a bit too personal for my taste. Things like one of the other player characters saying that they sneak in and peek in on my character as she's undressing. I fail in my role, and the DM asks me to describe what the other player character sees, asking precise questions about things like how she keeps her pubes, the size and shape of her butt, and if she's an innie or an outie. Having the new guy meet a dryad, who is clearly providing no other purpose than to have him describe his kinks and what he likes in bed. Or does he mind a finger up his butt as her mouth goes to town on his trouser night? Having an NPC only willing to meet us if the other girl's character and mine kiss, and us having to describe in a lot of detail how we do that, back and forth at each other. I tried to allude to the fact that I would like to fade to black on some scenes, and every time she rolled her eyes, said things like, I guess someone here doesn't like fun, and moved on to other things. Or just agreed on it, but came back with things like, as you are missing a key clue due to a certain someone. I don't know what to do, but also, I'm morbidly curious about what's going on, making me less prone to jump ship. Nah, I don't think OP is being a prude here. They were told that the game had some more mature themes, sure, but anyone could take that as more brutality in the game and such, and not expect full-on descriptive sex acts. Not to say that those types of games are wrong, but everyone should feel comfortable with that type of thing. Now, I can understand the morbid curiosity that OP has about what's going to happen with this group, but honestly, my advice to OP would be to look for a different group if this one is making OP uncomfortable. Though I will say that the DM could have been a bit nicer about OP bringing it up. Let's move on. Would I be the a-hole if I were to up and leave a table because I don't like the RP style? By Reddit user Infinite Clockwise. I recently joined an online group related to my school's anime club. Since there's no one who really plays tabletop RPGs in my country, I thought that it would be nice to play with folk who were similar to me in nationality and like-mindedness with tabletop RPGs. Apparently, they had a yearly session and signups were posted, so I was hyped to finally join a table with people who could all speak my mother tongue. From there, a few oddities started to show. First, they were playing an entirely homebrew system based off of Fate, the anime. It doesn't even use a D20 system, but rather feels more like an interactive board game. Oh well, no problem, I thought. I can learn the rules. So how the game works is that we each get a faction, and we have to lead said faction to victory. Session 0 rolls along, and we get our factions on a map that the GM made, and began by introducing our faction. Now, here's where I started to get worried. No one was in the voice chat, but everyone was in the Roll20 virtual tabletop. Then the, quote, introductions happened. You see, with said faction, we each made 2 to 3 NPCs. The entire introduction was just the same person role-playing by themselves with said NPCs, more like a freeform novel rather than an actual RPG. I was immediately turned off by the entire notion. I enjoy role-playing with other people much more than I do so by myself, and I absolutely hate having to do such things. I'm not describing my character or faction as a whole, but just these one-off conversations between me and NPCs. Needless to say, I was miffed, and since it was essentially session 0, and the entire ordeal lasted 2 to 3 hours, it still hadn't even ended because there were 9 people in the group. So I asked the GM if I could just leave. The table was not for me, and it seemed quite the experience, but just not for me. Unfortunately for both of us, if I were to leave, he'd have to remake a lot of material and rebalance every single player's faction and their rules because the system is completely made from scratch and thus does not have much flexibility for a player leaving the table once they've chosen the faction. I don't want to make him suffer through that, but on the other hand, I don't want to participate in a game I know I won't enjoy for 3 months. Would I be the a-hole if I were to dig in my heels about leaving? No, OP, you would not be the a-hole. I'm sure that the DM of the game, whatever that was, will be able to find another player. It may take them a little while to do so, that or just do a little reworking, but that shouldn't be made to force you to play the game that you have no interest in for months on end. And I would not give up on finding a game either. I'm sure you can eventually find a group online that fits more what you're looking for. On to the next one. That time the GM got annoyed we didn't like her cute shop idea, and suddenly, Dragon. By Reddit user, 3 of Swords. This is a tale of the greatest steamrolling, fanfic-style GMing I have ever seen. The party had been in town for 2 sessions, and had spent most of those 2 sessions listening to the GM and 2 players roleplay shopping. Excruciatingly detailed shopping. Finally, on the 3rd session, the party left to find an abandoned village located in the middle of a haunted forest. As you wander through the woods, you hear jingling. Okay, that seems sus. We ignore it and try to go around. You can't ignore the sound of the jingling because of your greedy gnomish heritage. Wait, what? There's only one gnome in the party. We go around it. You walk towards the jingling and find a kobold merchant with a massive turtle whose shell is his cart. We are in the middle of an abandoned haunted forest. How though? The kobold has all sorts of rare magic items. Cue an hour-long RP session, with the same players as before. The rest of the table zones out pretty quickly, and starts trying to pet and befriend the turtle instead of engaging with the shop. The GM is getting obviously annoyed that we aren't interested in shopping episode part 3. You can't do that. You aren't allowed to talk to or touch the turtle. Screw it. We keep trying to befriend the turtle. The barbarian gets close enough and goes to pet it. Then the DM angrily says, "Make a con save," and barbarian gets a 22 total. You fail and are petrified. The kobold and the turtle are an illusion. It's actually an ancient bronze dragon. We are level 6. Hell nah, we're out. We leave and drag our stony friend along with us. You aren't strong enough to move the body. With no checks or no ways to problem solve. You have to pay the dragon 250 GP and apologize to unpetrify the barbarian. Otherwise, they need to roll a new character. Well, that is some straight up BS. Not only did the DM railroad the hell out of the party by making them walk towards the encounter instead of what the party said they wanted to do, but then, when some players didn't want to shop and just roleplay with the turtle, the DM makes it turn into a dragon on the spot? If you haven't already, I would leave that game. Let's move on to the next one. My players keep arguing with me. By Reddit user AlphaWolf52795. The group. Level 9 from level 1. It's been over a year. We have a rogue warlock bard. It's a long story. A rogue, a twilight cleric, a barbarian fighter, barbarian 2, and druid. The roguelock and cleric are the biggest culprits. For example, last session, my breaking point. The players get back to a lakeside town and find it flooded and being attacked by water elementals. In combat with those, they ask what time of day it is, so I say probably around 4 p.m. They proceed to argue that that would be sunset, with the logic that it's winter. I say the world sunsets at like 8, but they say, but that's summer and the sun sets earlier in the winter. I say yeah, but not by 4 hours, etc. After combat, they go to the water's edge and can see that the center of the lake is shooting out a torrent of water, a portal to the elemental plane opened at the bottom. They find a large rowboat and head there, but Druid has to go back to his house for a bit for valid reasons. After a while, they get into combat with a high-power crocodile that I found called the Drocodile. It has an attack that grapples a creature if you're hit by it, but it has a low escape DC. They call BS and try to make an acrobatics check or something to get away from it, but I say no, though they push more and more. After a round or two, their boat is broken, and I try to do the bile spit attack, like a black dragon's breath weapon, and they call BS again, saying that it would disperse in the water. I get pissed because the roguelock is talking to me like I'm a child or a moron, so I say, you know what, F this, we're taking a break. I then sit in my chair and scroll on my phone, while roguelock and rogue play on the Xbox and the others disperse. Only the cleric is apologetic. Druid gets back after about 25 minutes, and I call everyone back to the table. I tell everyone that sometimes I might make a bad call, and you're allowed to say something about it, but if we can't agree within a few seconds, drop it and we will talk about it later. I don't care what you think should happen. A lot of these times, I have to make my own rules because of the stuff that I let you guys do outside of 5e rules, and that's not easy. Everyone seems to agree, but Roguelock avoids eye contact and shakes his head while messing with dice. They used to be a lot worse, stealing from each other all the time and doing PvP, which I stopped with a speech like this. I don't think this is going to be fixed though, and I'm not asking a specific question, I just needed to vent. That can be annoying when a player argues about something and brings the game to a halt for everyone else. And I can't blame OP for getting so frustrated that they paused the game. OP did do the right thing here by talking to everyone before continuing, and it sounds like everyone was pretty receptive, except Roguelock. Hopefully, things get better for OP's game, but if they continue to be like that, just tell them that DMing for them is beginning to be a constant headache, and if it keeps up, you'll just stop. No D&D is better than bad D&D. Especially if you're a DM dealing with players like these. But that is all I have for you today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and may your games remain horror story free. Until next time.